So before we take a look at the question, let's recap the percentage yield formula. Very simple, right? So the percentage yield, so yield being the amount of product, is equal to the amount obtained, right? Whether that's in grams, kilograms, moles. So that's what you get in the experiment, basically. So how much is obtained in the experiment divided by the theoretical amount. So how much we should have got in an ideal scenario where everything goes right. There's no loss of product, there's no impurities, and so on, times 100. So it's the amount obtained divided by the theoretical amount times 100. And then that would give a percentage yield. Now, almost always the percentage yield is never 100% because, as I said, there could be loss of the product, there could be impurities in the reactants, or the reaction just simply doesn't finish, it doesn't go to completion. So let's take a look at this one. It says, in a synthesis of compound D, from 1,3-diaminobenzene, shown in the flow chart. Well, actually, I've just chopped this from a previous question. We just need this bit. So basically, this 1-aminodibenzene forms compound D. 1.73 grams of compound D was prepared. These structures have been repeated below. The overall percentage yield for compound D is 40%. The MR of compound D is 346. It's kind of us to give us that MR because that would take quite a while to add up. And it says calculate the mass of 1,3-diaminobenzene needed for this synthesis. And we can see it's a 3-mark question. Okay, so just to speed things up, let's just work out the RFM first of all for 1,3-diaminobenzene before we get into working out the moles and so on. So we got 12 times 6 on the benzene is 72 plus 4 hydrogens plus 2 amino groups comes to is 108. Now the first thing I need to do is I need to work out what the theoretical amount of 1,3-diaminobenzene is to produce this amount of 1.73 grams. And then I can think about working out what is actually needed because it's only working at a 40% conversion. So first thing I need to do is work out the moles of compound D. So moles of D will be 1.73 divided by 346. So 1.73 divided by 346 gives us 0.005 moles. So that's step 1, work out the moles of the product we have. Step 2 is to compare the molar ratio of the product to the reactant. And in this case, we can see it's 1:1. So 1 of this comes from 1 of that. So therefore, the moles of the 1,3-diamino is also 0.005. So you're asking yourself, why do I need to work out the moles of the reactant? It's so I can turn that into a mass to find out what the theoretical mass I need is to produce 1.73 grams of D. So therefore, number 3 is to work out the mass the 1,3-diaminobenzene required. So just put 1,3 for short like that, would be 0.005 times 108, gives me 0.54 grams. Right, now here's the tricky bit. So this bit I'll do in a different color just to make it stand out and so to pay attention to this part, okay? We would need 0.54 grams of the 1,3 to make 1.73 grams of compound D, assuming it worked perfectly and it was 100% a conversion, so 100% percentage yield. That's how much we would need, just 0.54 grams to produce 1.73 grams of D. However, it is not working at 100%. It's only working at 40%. So what does that tell me? We're going to need more of this to meet the requirement of 1.73 grams of D. So how can we work out what is actually needed to get the desired amount of 1.73 grams? Well, for this, we can just turn to a simple maths ratio, right? So we know that at present, only 40% is converting, right? That's the percentage yield. That's what we've been told. So 0.54 grams is generating just a 40% return, but we want to know what is needed to make 100%, i.e. the amount we want, which is 1.73 grams. So the way to work this out is to set up, so we need to find that question mark, is to find out what 1% is. So 0.54 grams produces 40%. So divide both sides by 40, which means 0.54 divided by 40 is how much I'll need for 1%, which means then if I times both sides by 100, then 0.54 divided by 40 times 100 will tell me what 100% is. So let's go ahead and do that. Tells me we're going to actually need 1.35 grams of 1,3-diamino benzene to generate 1.73 grams of compound D when it's only working at a 40% yield. And that's it. So I hope that was helpful. If you haven't watched the first video on percentage yield, I suggest you do that now. I say it's slightly easier than one we just done, but all we was doing here was just simple ratio to work out what the actual amount of reactant was we needed. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.